following program, Normal Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting NORML.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of Normal Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of Normal. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. Then it goes down smooth.
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to think and criminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents Normal Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, Normal's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is Thursday, April 28th, 2011, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us here in Rolla J Studios in beautiful Potland, Oregon. We are glad to bring you this podcast on behalf of the Normal Foundation. Thank you so much. And usually joining us here in our studio in Potland is our own Ganja John. Unfortunately, if you heard the Ganja John show last night, you probably realize already that he was really, really ill. So he had to call in sick, so he couldn't make it today. We will check in on Ganja John's eyeball. You know, Ganja John's got that false eye. We have a special microphone implanted on it. And Ganja John, we're really, really upset that you couldn't be here at our show today. I wonder if you have any retort.
Well, excuse me!
Yeah, okay, I guess I got to take that for what it's worth. Let's go to our virtual studio in Astoria, Oregon, where unfortunately we also don't get any cannabis carry today. No, that's not funny at all, Pee-wee. We miss Cannabis Carrie. We wish he was here. But we do get to go over to camera 2 here, where sitting in Ganja John's seat is Kaliko the intern. Hi, Kaliko.
Aloha. What's up, guys?
Oh, we're having ourselves a good time. You were here for Ganja John's show last night, right?
I was.
He was.
That was the last sighting of him. He was a little under the weather.
Oh, that's such a shame. Well, we got all sorts of stuff we got to get to in today's show. Anyway, we don't take a break. It's 420, 24/7, 365 here at Normal Show Live. So coming up on today's show, we've got a Groovin' Thursday song for you. Kind of a special song I'm going to bring to you. We're going to go on kind of a soul R&B jazz tip today. I kind of spice things up a little bit. So check that out with a group called Jazz Chronic. I think they fit perfectly. At 5:30, we've got the Southern California scene. Today, Terry Joyce is going to be bringing us Shiloh Jinglefoot, the author of a book called Ganjalicious, A Higher Level of Cooking. So that'll be kind of interesting. Learn more about cannabis cooking. I think we can get some more information on that. We'll also take your calls. If you have any questions for Shiloh or Terry during today's show, you can dial in at 971 533-7111 once we get to that segment. And then at the end of the show, I want to talk about getting high. Yeah, really. We're going to talk about getting high, something that's very near and dear to all of our hearts. And I'm going to be asking the essential morality questions of this. What is wrong with getting high in the first place? All that and more is coming up on today's Normal Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation and the anchor of the Normal Network. Make sure you stay tuned throughout the day. We got all sorts of great shows coming up later on, including a new Hollywood Hemptress Hour. Be right back after this.
You're listening to Normal Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
In today's busy world, we're inundated by advertising for all types of pharmaceuticals that come with a laundry list of potential side effects. Shouldn't you have better medical choices? Natural alternatives to pills pushed by Big Pharma? At Alternative Medical Choices, you could choose natural, safe, and effective alternative therapies that are right for your budget without nasty side effects. Cannabis, or marijuana, has been a legal medicine in the Pacific Northwest since 1998. Our doctors will help determine your qualifications for a medical marijuana recommendation in Oregon, no matter where you live. Our massage therapists will ease your aches and stress with soothing hemp seed oil or cannabis-infused massage salves. We also offer acupuncture, Reiki, and other alternative health therapies. Call Alternative Medical Choices in Portland, Oregon at 503-288-5579 or visit our website at www.altmedchoices.com. We specialize in out-of-state recommendations. That's www.altmedchoices.com or call 503-288-5579.
Are you or is someone you know a marijuana smoker? Have you or is someone in your family been arrested for a marijuana violation? You need to know the truth about pot. NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, is the most comprehensive source of information regarding marijuana and its effects on health, as well as legal issues. NORML even offers a database of lawyers specializing in cannabis in your area. NORML, the nation's largest and most successful marijuana law reform organization, has spent decades gathering the knowledge and science on everything related to cannabis. NORML is the best resource to find out the truth about marijuana, connect with a lawyer in your area, or help find an end to prohibition. Information is available at norml.org, that's NORML.org, or toll free at 888-67-NORML.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carey.
Cannabis Carey has the day off today. I'm Radical Russ with your NORML News. Legislation to allow for the medical use of cannabis has been reintroduced in the Pennsylvania Senate. Legislation, Senate Bill 1003 would allow state-authorized patients to possess and cultivate cannabis for therapeutic purposes. The measure also seeks to allow for the state-licensed distribution and sale of medical marijuana by authorized compassion centers. Nearly 80% of Pennsylvanians support the measure, according to a 2010 Franklin and Marshall poll. SB 1003 has been referred to the Senate Public Health and Welfare Committee, but has yet to be assigned a hearing. Please contact your state senator and urge them to support Senate Bill 1003. For your convenience, we have a pre-written letter which can be emailed to him or her when you enter your contact information at our Capwiz Center at norml.org. Also, please contact Philly NORML at phillynormal.org or Pennsylvanians for Medical Marijuana. You can get more information and all the links at our blog at stash.norml.org. News from CNN on a recent poll. The polls lately have been showing a growing support for marijuana legalization by adults. I've brought you much of this information in my presentations and graphs. The latest Gallup poll shows a 46% support for legalization, and other polls show even greater support, even to a majority. From the Angus Reid poll, we got a 53% support. So I was somewhat surprised over the 420 break when we heard a new poll come out from CNN that found only 41% support among adults for legalization. What happened? Well, they redefined adult to mean anyone over the age of 35. This comes from a blog called OurTime.org, and it's about youth issues in politics, not just marijuana legalization, but getting more youth participation. It's OurTime.org, and I encourage people to look it up. And this is from their blog. Today, CNN.com released results from interviews with 824 adult Americans asking their opinions on the legalization of marijuana and gay marriage. The only problem? They didn't do a great job making sure the opinions of 70 million adult Americans were accurately included. In a response to the prompt, quote, "Do you favor or oppose the legalization of marijuana?" 41% of adults said they favor it, 56% opposed, and 2% had no opinion. The results for, quote, "Do you think marriages between gay and lesbian couples should or should not be recognized by the law as valid with the same rights as traditional marriage," end quote, showed 51% of adults saying they should be recognized as valid, 47% saying they should not be recognized, and 2% with no opinion. American adults tend to be evenly divided on topics like this, so no surprise on the numbers. However, what is incredibly surprising is that when CNN.com posted the results, they realized they did not have enough respondents between the ages of 18 and 34 to accurately represent their opinions. Let me break this down for you statistically, what they're doing here with the math. When you do a survey sample, you do a survey like 824 Americans, you are selecting them randomly, and they have to be selected from groups, and the selection within those groups has to be large enough to be statistically valid. You know how they always, in these polls, they say plus or minus 3.4% margin of error, or plus or minus 3.3%. Where that's coming from is because unless you asked everyone, like if you asked all 300 million Americans, you could get an accurate poll, right? And even then, it wouldn't be entirely accurate. There might be a 0.1 or 0.2% margin of error just because of, transcription errors or mistakes in calculation. And when you factor that, you have to get 1,000 or so people together in order to make a statistically valid survey that's within the acceptable margin of error. And what they're finding here is out of those 824, so few of them were between the ages of 18 and 34 that it wasn't statistically valid. And that's why we're seeing the numbers pull so low from the CNN.com. Shame on them for releasing a survey knowing that the adults they were referring to weren't actually all the adults. Up north of us, in Washington state, of course, there's the bill to create dispensaries and a card registry system, and it's landed on the desk of Governor Christine Gregoire. This is the latest report on the issue from the Seattle Times. Governor Chris Gregoire appears to be weighing either a partial veto or a full veto of a medical marijuana bill passed by the legislature last week. The governor, at a news conference on Wednesday, said, "I'm looking at it only with what I can save, not whether I will sign it," end quote. The measure would create a system for licensing storefront dispensaries and grow operations and protect some patients from arrest. The governor indicated she would not let the bill survive in its present form. Quote, "I cannot and will not subject state employees to criminal prosecution at the federal level. I think it would be highly irresponsible on my part," end quote, she told reporters. She was referring to state employees who would collect fees or inspect and audit dispensaries and producers under the legislation. The governor added, quote, "I don't even know that I could implement the law," end quote, because 2 U.S. attorneys have warned that state workers could be subject to prosecution. Quote, "If I ask state employees to do it, I don't know that they'd volunteer. I wouldn't," she said, "so I don't expect any state employee to volunteer. Therefore, I can't implement it," end quote. Gregoire said there are some aspects of the bill she'd like to save, if possible, such as a patient registry. Quote, "I think we need a registry to prevent arrest of medical patients," end quote, she said. Why is it that the governors of New Mexico, Colorado, and Rhode Island aren't afraid of their state workers facing prosecution? They have state-licensed, state-sanctioned medical cannabis distribution systems run by state employees, yet none of them have faced a single federal prosecution over it. Look, Gregoire's just playing this feds might prosecute card because she wants political cover. She just wants to veto this thing. She doesn't like the issue. She's in bed with law enforcement. She doesn't want to see a thriving medical cannabis industry that might raise funds for a political opponent who might be more friendly to medical marijuana on the Democratic side of the aisle. She's constantly fending off Republicans like Dino Rossi and others in this very, very swing state, and she doesn't want to appear soft on drugs. That's what's going on here. Now, with no legal dispensaries, the current gray area, I'm a caregiver for 100 patients, one at a time, thing that's going on for 30 seconds up there in Washington, that's going to continue to go. It's going to continue. It's going to grow. More people are going to start doing it. The feds and local law enforcement are going to come in. They're going to raid them. Probably not press very many charges, but they'll raid them anyway, destroy the business, cost people a lot of money, spend a lot of taxpayer dollars raiding these gray area dispensaries. Now, some of those gray area dispensaries, they'll file lawsuits, and that'll tie up some more taxpayer resources, tie up the courts a little bit more wasted time, more wasted money, and more wasted lives as these patients who desperately need access are forced to go to these gray areas or even to some black markets and wherever they go, the prices are way too expensive for someone who's on a fixed income, someone who's disabled, someone who's living off of SSI. This once again just shows you that we need to move past medical marijuana and enact marijuana legalization for everyone, regardless of reason. Even here in the pot-friendly Pacific Northwest, we try to modify and fix medical marijuana, make it better for patients, and it gets hijacked by some unfriendly committee, or it gets tabled by some unfriendly legislature, or the law enforcement lobbyists come in, and what you started with doesn't end up with what you get voted on here. And so long as the police have to sort out the patients from the criminals, right? So long as they have to sort out the patients from the criminals, you're going to have to prove you're a patient to not be a criminal. You are going to be assumed to be a criminal until proven a patient. Now, on the other side of this, Gregoire looks like she wants to keep this voluntary registry system to protect patients from arrest. However, in order to maintain the political support for this medical marijuana card, the opponents kept the recommendation letters, which is what they've got now, right? In Washington State right now, they're the only one without a registry. They get these recommendation letters. They don't really protect you from arrest, right? You can still be arrested, and then you have the affirmative defense to take your letter to the judge and make your case and then get let off, right? But that's still going to court and all that time and all that money and that, dealing with the lawyers and so forth, getting booked, all of that, right? So rather than fix that letter, make that letter better, make it so it could protect you from arrest, they came up with this card. Now, initially in this bill, they did make the letter better. They made it so you couldn't get arrested, but you could still be prosecuted. But then the opponents of this bill said, well, gosh, if we make this voluntary card system that protects you from arrest, and you've got this letter that protects you from arrest, why would anyone have incentive to pick up the voluntary card? And so they killed the protections from the letter. Now the letter is going to be just like it was, but I actually think it might turn out worse, because now that you've got a card system, law enforcement's going to say, aha, if you really were a patient, you would have signed up for a card. So this letter thing, let's go ahead and arrest you and let's see how that all washes out. Let's give you some incentive to sign up for that voluntary registry. Sometimes, man, the more you learn about politics, the more it is like truly the sausage factory. You don't want to know how things get made in there. All right, one last story, also with a Pacific Northwest feel, but actually coming out of California. This was reported by Bloomberg. Starbucks Corporation, the coffee giant, won a court ruling that it doesn't have to disclose the identities of potential plaintiffs in a lawsuit filed originally by 3 job seekers that claimed the company illegally required applicants to disclose marijuana convictions. Kind of complex, but let me lead you through this. The California Appeals Court overturned a lower court ruling that Starbucks, the world's largest coffee shop operator, must disclose the identities of former job applicants who might be covered by the plaintiff's lawsuit. 3 plaintiffs sued in 2005, seeking class action or group status and as much as $26 million in damages over claims that the company violated a California law barring employers from asking prospective hires about convictions for minor marijuana offenses that are more than 2 years old. After the appeals court in 2008 said that the 3 had no basis to sue because they had no marijuana convictions themselves, a lower court judge ordered Starbucks to review its job applications for possible candidates to lead the lawsuit. Starbucks was ordered to randomly sort through about 135,000 job applications until it found 25 candidates who were then to be told in a letter that they had the right to opt out of the suit. The appeals court in Santa Ana reversed that order, saying that requiring Starbucks to disclose the applicants' identities ironically violates the legislation meant to protect them from being stigmatized. All right, so it's a complex situation. Let me see if I can break this down for you. 3 guys applied for Starbucks and were denied. They wanted to work at Starbucks. They got denied. They noticed on the job applications, the job app was asking, have you had a marijuana conviction? They said, wait a minute, you can't do that. In California, there's a law that says after 2 years, you can't ask for that stuff. Those convictions aren't valid reason for discrimination. So they sued Starbucks. And the courts came back and said, hey, dudes, you may have something here, but you can't really sue because you don't have a marijuana conviction. There's nothing here showing that you were harmed, right? Even if that question was there, since you don't have a conviction, it didn't hurt you any. So that court went to Starbucks and said, all right, Starbucks, you need to find 25 people that you tried to hire, that tried to get hired by you, that answered the question, yes, they did have a marijuana conviction, so that those 25 can file the class action lawsuit on behalf of these 3 guys, because they actually did suffer some sort of harm. But then the most recent ruling is another court saying, no, you can't do that, because if you send a letter to those 25 guys saying that Starbucks denied you because of this question, you're outing them as marijuana consumers, which was what the whole point of having the law was in the first place. Now, the attorney for the plaintiff says that's bull because in sending the letter out to opt out, you don't have to tell them why they're a part of the suit necessarily. So you could give them the chance to opt out without identifying them as marijuana consumers, and he's going to take that to the California Supreme Court. We'll keep you posted on how all of that stuff turns out. Woo! This is a lot harder going solo, Kaliko.
Oh yeah, I'd imagine so.
So many mice and screens, oh my!
We'll get it done.
I think I need something to relax with.
We could take care of that.
Let's do that. Right back.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support NORML Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
This is NORML Show Live.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years. They've got mandatory sentences, and these judges just say, they throw up their hands and say, there's nothing we can do. There's mandatory sentences. We've got to take a look at what we're considering crimes.
When the Reverend Pat Robertson from television's The 700 Club
Criminalizing marijuana, criminalizing the possession of a few ounces of pot and that kind of thing. I mean, it's just...
makes more sense on the marijuana issue than the president, the Congress, and the Supreme Court.
It's costing us a fortune, and it's ruining young people. The young people go into prisons, they come out, they go in as youths, and they come out as hardened criminals, and it's not a good thing.
You know we're winning.
Legalize it. Don't criticize.
This is Peter Tosh for NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Did you know that more than 400,000 Americans were arrested last year for the possession of marijuana? People are being sentenced to up to 40 years for even standing beside a joint. Well, I think it is definitely time for you to help doing something towards this. To find out what you can do, just write NORML, NORML,
1600 K Street Northwest, Washington, D.C., 2006. That's 1600 K Street Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20006.
Help NORML to help protect your rights.
Puff Pass Records.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we bring you tunes for Groovin' Thursday. Our salute to all the dopest beats and killer rhymes that we find in the best of rap, hip-hop, soul, R&B, and funk. Brought to you by the John Doe Radio Show in Denver, Colorado. Accurate and informative marijuana reform news and entertainment. Available on the THC Media Network and JohnDoeRadio.com. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on NORML Show Live, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, folks, welcome back. Hey, a little change is going to be happening here for Thursday. John Doe is retiring as our Thursday music editor, and there's no drama here. No drama. He just needs time to do other stuff. Everything's cool. In fact, me and JDR had some communications over this last couple of days, and everything is good. Everything's hunky-dory. So much love out to Tim Martin and John Doe Radio. But we're going to be taking over the music here for a few weeks until we get a new music editor. If you're interested in being our music editor for Groovin' Thursdays, which is hip-hop, R&B, soul, and funk, send me an email at stash@normal.org. Make sure you put music editor in the heading there so I can find it. So anyway, we're going to go into my flavor of Groovin' Thursday music, and I found this one on the IOTA promo net. Basically, their name just tipped it off for me. They're called Jazz Chronic. and they're from the musical hotbed of Athens, Georgia. They play original rock, funk-injected jazz music. You had me at Jazz Chronic. That is reminiscent of funk, organ, and horn-led bands of the late 70s. You know, talking Tower of Power, Earth, Wind, and Fire, you know, good stuff. Jazz Chronic creates high-energy music that is innovative, stimulating, and brings a powerful musical experience for music fans everywhere. The new album, Groovathon, right? Groovathon. Can't go wrong, right? New album Groovathon is truly that, with funky tracks for fatty fans like Groove Pimps, Gimme Some Green, and On the Grind. Today, we set the groove to instrumental saxified jazz funk with a jam called Rollin' Thick. It's got a sound like somebody got Spyro Gyra really blazed and asked him to compose a soundtrack for a chase scene in a Cleopatra Jones flick. It's good stuff, man. You better roll a thick one to get into this Groovathon with Jazz Chronic and Rollin' Thick.
want a copy of that song for your iPod? Check out the Daily Toker Tunes at the Stash blog by surfing to stash.normal.org and choosing Media and then Toker Tunes from the main menu.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527.
As High Times Senior Cultivation Editor, I'm often called into the field and asked to sample or even identify exotic strains of marijuana in their natural habitat. Now, for the first time, I've compiled more than 120 of my favorite strains into this single field guide designed to fit into your pocket as you travel the world in search of your favorite plant. From a friend's closet grow room to the wilds of Northern California, this single guide covers all of today's best-known strains, plus heirlooms and throwbacks, including High Times quality photos and information on each variety's genetic heritage and growing characteristics, plus my personal notes on aroma, flavor, and potency. So this is Danny Danko, author of the official High Times Field Guide to Marijuana Strains, wishing you good times and great ganja.
The official High Times Field Guide to Marijuana Strains is available at hightimes.com and finer bookstores.
This is Normal Show Live.
As regards to legalization, it's not in the president's vocabulary and it's not in mine.
Providing dictionaries to drug czars since 2009.
I don't care what you say. That ain't right. That ain't right. That ain't right. I don't care what you say.
Weed.
That's Ruby Valley, hooey-ha.
Weed.
Where any office boy or young mechanic.
Now it's time for a report from the epicenter of American cannabis culture with our Southern California correspondent. You know her from ComedyNation.com and her appearance as a finalist on Season 1 of NBC's Last Comic Standing. It's our friend, cannabis comedian and marijuana activist, the lovely and talented Terry Joyce. Oh, we're so glad to be speaking again with Terry Joyce, and I'm crossing my fingers because Carrie's out today, and I hope she just is on the line here. Terry, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, you are such a pro.
Yeah.
Hey, how
I
was
heard you were in Colorado last week.
I was in Colorado working my ass off. How was your 420?
It was great. You know, I had a show on 420. Hollywood Huntress Hour taped me. Just happened to fall on 420.
Yeah.
And it was excellent. And then I went to a party at Bruce Margolin's place later on that night.
Yeah, Bruce Margolin. He's the head of Los Angeles NORML.
Yes. Yeah, so I hung out and did that, and it was a wonderful day. And actually, what's even more exciting is before I bring our guest, because she also is from Colorado, so there's a little bit of a connection there. And Hollywood Hempest Hours is now on iTunes, and I just wanted to announce that as of today, we can be downloaded on iTunes.
All right, so your most recent show is the 420 show?
Yes, and the guest that I had was Vince Fluke, who is a comedian from Canada, and then also Richard Castaldo, and he's a 420 historian. But what's interesting about him is that he is a Columbine survivor.
Oh, wow.
Which happened on 420.
That's right.
Ironic, you know. Yeah, so he was there and, gave the scoop on how he smokes marijuana to help him out with his pain. And we had a lot of fun that day.
All right, so that show will be on later tonight, 8 p.m. Pacific time. Thursdays is when we run the new airings of Hollywood Hemptress Hour, and if you miss it at that time, there's more replays throughout the week. If you just go to our blog at stash.normal.org, click on the times on the side there, and you'll get the whole list of all the times. And we're really loving your show, Terry. Glad to have you, and thanks to New Dissonant Radio for having you on our network.
Oh, I love it, and thank you for having me and having us.
Yeah.
My guest today is she's from Colorado. Her name is Shiloh Dinglefoot. That's a great name, isn't it?
Yeah, I loved
and she wrote a book called Gonjalicious, A Higher Level of Food, and she's now going to have a regular segment on Hollywood Hempress Hour, giving everybody, the listeners out there, some extra cooking cannabis secrets and tips. And so I wanted to welcome Shiloh Dinglefoot to our show.
Hi, Shiloh. Welcome to Normal Show Live.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a great show.
So you're from Colorado originally?
Actually, originally I'm from San Antonio, Texas, but I've just recently moved here to Denver to promote the book and to get more into the culture and, the movement.
Okay.
It's been a really great move.
Yeah, I just came back from Denver, and one of the things that amazed me so much about it is how well entrenched and advanced the medicated edibles market is up there. The cooking and the salves. We got these lozenges. I mean, anything you could think of to put cannabis in, it's going on there in Denver.
Absolutely. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, tell us about what you're producing up there.
Well, at this point, I am just doing personal catering, the edibles business with licensing, et cetera, et cetera. I haven't decided to move into starting my own edibles company, but just doing personal catering for the most part and promoting my book and promoting awareness of, the movement and how we can, take more initiative and make it go further.
Right on. Well, the book is Gonjalicious, and I hope I got it right. A Higher Level of Food. Is that right?
That is correct.
Gonjalicious, a higher level of food, and let's get some tips from you here. What is the most common mistakes people make when they're trying to cook with cannabis, and how can they cure them?
Okay, the most common mistake that's ever made is they burn their oil or their butter. And what most people do not know, and what I've done some science work about it, is that THC vaporizes at 375 degrees. So a rolling boil is higher than 375 degrees. So what most people are doing is vaporizing their buzz. And so the THC is going into the air and not necessarily into the butter or to the oil. And so then they have this bitter tasting oil with no buzz, and they wonder what happened.
Yeah, you end up with a cookie that tastes like hay.
Yeah, exactly. And then it doesn't even get you high. So, that's the most common mistake. And how I encourage people to remedy that situation is to crock pot it, because your crock pot on low temperature will never get over 300 degrees. So you could just let it ride without having to do stovetop or water in the double broiler or running water through anything. It's 1, 2, 3, put it all into the crock pot, turn it on, and
now, with you being in Denver at the altitude, 5280, mile high, do you have to change recipes up a little bit for the altitude? Is that something?
I'm sorry, you're cutting in and out.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just wondering, being up in Denver with the high altitude, do you have to change your recipes any?
The baking recipes definitely have to get tweaked. In fact, I threw a party just last weekend and made the pineapple get upside down cake. And it was almost as flat as a pancake. I was pretty disappointed. And so yes, there are definitely, when you're baking is mostly where the issues come into play with being at a higher altitude. But for the most part, things take a little longer to cook, but just a little.
Yeah.
Just a little. It's just about the leavening, because it definitely, things don't want to rise here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a lot of discussion on this topic lately. People are very much getting into edibles, especially as, there's so much anti-smoking furor out there. Everybody wants to demonize the smoking. And so a lot of people are turning to edibles, and it's been especially good for seniors and people who don't have experience with cannabis to get introduced to cannabis as a medicine. What is it in your book, Gonjalicious, A Higher Level of Food, that is any different than any of the other books we might get out there on cooking with ganja?
In fact, what's awesome about my book is that the majority of my book, and the whole reason why I wrote it, is to kind of like take a new spin on edibles into a more healthier way of eating, into like more rounded meals that you feel good eating, because most of the marijuana edibles out on the market, at least, are sweets. And, you've got your Rice Krispie treats, your cookies, your brownies, your this, your that, and your ice cream and your sodas, and like the list just goes on, and it's mostly based in sugar products. And what really inspired me to kind of get into doing different recipes is that I don't really like a lot of sugary substances. So but I want to eat. And so the majority of my book, I have 4 savory recipes to every sweet recipe. So, it kind of like spins it into no, you can actually have a meal that is medicated, that is a salad, that's really good for you and raw and it's got all your vitamins, and you can still get medicated. And in fact, enjoy it more.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you're onto something here, because if you're coming up with medicated asparagus and Brussels sprouts, you might turn me on to asparagus and Brussels sprouts.
We have this thing in the book called marinara sauce, which is my version of a marinara sauce ganjified. And I'm telling you, I am really looking forward to putting this into a jar and mass producing it, because people will eat so much healthier. I mean, you could, in 1, 2, 3, open a jar, put it on pasta, fry up some cheese sticks, have meatball sandwiches. I mean, the list goes on how this sauce can be used. And I think more people would feel better about eating ganja food if it were better for you.
Yeah, that's the thing, too. I like lots of these little edibles, but like you say, it's all Rice Krispie treats and brownies and candies and cookies, and, somebody wants to eat something that's substantial here. It almost seems like it would be kind of a closed loop process here, too. You eat the good food, and it gives you the ganja that gives you the munchies that makes you eat more of the good food, and you become healthier and medicated the whole time.
Exactly right. Exactly right. That was part of my vision, and I'm glad you see it as well.
Well, cool.
It's better for if you're a diabetic. The problem with, for instance, my mom's a diabetic, and she can't have, brownies and things like that. So having another alternative is good. Absolutely.
And Terry, I also always love to give you a chance to get questions in here for Shiloh as well. Did you have something you wanted to ask?
Well, Shiloh, I would like to have her let us know about what the book looks like. And what's really fun about it is that she has pictures that you can color. So it's very artistic. And so, Shiloh, what inspired you to include that into your into art and kind of a funky, different way in your book?
Well, this is a great story, in fact. So I was kind of mentioning to my friends how I was needing to take pictures for the book, and I had taken a few pictures of the dishes, and I'm like, dude, you can't tell whether this has ganja in it or not. It just looks like every other standard picture, in every other standard book. And I was just like, that's no good. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was hanging out and just did some doodles, just thinking about my book, and just, threw down some doodles. And one of the pictures is a couch potato salad that's in the book. And it was just the cutest little cartoon drawing that I was just like, oh my gosh, that's what's going to set us apart from the other ones, is to make it, part of my book and my vision is to bring fun back into the adult world. I think as adults, many of us don't give ourselves enough room to have fun, and it's that fun that promotes good health. And so I just kind of went with it, and started to get other friends of mine to draw me pictures, and it just kind of flowed together. And the coloring actually kind of came later as we were formatting the book, and I was just like, oh my goodness, this looks like a coloring book. So I'm like, oh, it should be a coloring book. How much fun is that? So.
Fantastic. Well, Shiloh Jinglefoot is the author of Ganjalicious, a higher level of food.
And you can visit us at ganjalicious.com.
I was just going to ask, where can we find the book, and where can people buy it? Ganjalicious.com. And are you doing any festivals or anything where people can meet you and maybe get a signature?
Oh, absolutely. We're going to be at the Mile High Music Festival this year. This summer I'm not doing as many festivals as last summer, but we post pretty much everywhere Ganjalicious is going to go on the website. So if you just kind of keep updating yourself, as soon as I know, I'll post. And then everybody else can know.
All right, ganjalicious.com, and we'll post that on our blog as well.
Just how it sounds.
Just like it sounds. And Terry Joyce is the host of the Hollywood Hemptress Hour that'll be appearing later tonight, 8 p.m. on the NORML Network. And Terry, anything else you need to leave us with?
Well, again, I just want to let you know that the listening audience that Shiloh is going to be have a regular segment on Hollywood Hemptress Hour, and you can find me, Terry Joyce, at Twitter, and go to the Hollywood Hemptress like page on Facebook and like us, and you can find out all the updates, what's going on with the show. And that's it. Thank you.
All right.
Happy 420.
Happy 420 to you. And thank you, Shiloh Jinglefoot and Terry Joyce, for joining us. And listen to Terry's show later on tonight, 8 o'clock on the NORML Network. When we come back, a little bit of radical ranting. Stay tuned.
76% of Americans no longer support arresting and jailing marijuana smokers. And nearly as many support the medical patients having access to medical marijuana. And over 80% of our citizens now believe the war on drugs is an ineffective failure. So the question is, when will the government's misguided war on adult marijuana smokers finally end? When? Simple. When you and your like-minded friends, family, and coworkers get involved with an organization such as the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, also known as NORML. My name is Keith Stropp, and I founded the organization in 1970. Contact us at NORML, toll-free, 888-67-NORML, or by visiting the organization's up-to-date webpage at www.norml.org.
Do you really want to legalize marijuana? Prove it. Join NORML today at NORML.org, and your donation will help us spread the growing truth about cannabis. Free speech ain't free, you know.
Free the ganja tree, it's the healing of the nation. Free the Cali weed, good for meditation. Free the pot smokers, they're in a delight. Lighting up the chalice, they keep no malice. Free the marijuana. Come on, say, free the marijuana. You may hear me say, free the marijuana. Come on, say, free the marijuana.
You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
Welcome back, everyone. Just hanging out here in the studio, and I got to thinking about some stuff. You know, in America, we got this strange relationship with plants. It's very interesting. And there's one plant called tobacco, right? And it's grown in mostly the American South. And it's this legal plant. It's completely legal. You know, there's a whole industry that's set up on manufacturing, growing this plant and treating it and processing it and rolling it into cigarettes and mass marketing it and selling it to Americans 18 and older. It's tobacco. Everybody's pretty familiar with it. And then there's this other plant that also has a long history in America called cannabis. Hemp is how our founding fathers knew of it. And in fact, this year is the 400th anniversary of its planting at the Jamestown colonies. And the founding fathers and the colonists were all required to pay their taxes in hemp, and they drafted the Declaration of Independence on hemp and so on. So it was used as a textile crop for the most part. But lately, in this century, in the last century, it's been known as a medicine. It's been even going back to 1850 with O'Shaughnessy. This cannabis plant has been known as a medicine and a recreational relaxant, something people could smoke to kind of feel good. Similar to tobacco, I mean, a lot of people smoke this tobacco plant because they say it makes them feel good, allows them to socialize and relax. So we've got these two plants in America, both with a long history, both with sustained economies that are reliant on the American consumer to use them. Of course, while that tobacco industry is completely legal and a very strong power player in Washington politics, that cannabis industry isn't. That cannabis plant's completely illegal, and no one's allowed to produce it legally, and they can be shipped off to prison if they do. And the people that use it, that smoke it, on even a irregular basis, can be subject to massive penalties and incarceration and loss of their jobs and their property if they're caught with it. So we've got these two plants, tobacco and cannabis, and both of them have a long history. Now, I have a little tin here, and in this tin, I asked my intern, Kaliko, to choose. And we've got both of these plants here today. We've got some dry leaf tobacco, the free roll tobacco, and we've got the free roll cannabis, right? And we've got both here. And I just asked him to pick randomly, which one he would load up into this little tin here. And I just wanted to see if if we could tell just by the reaction and what happened during the processing and use of this plant, if you viewers out there could tell which plant it was. Because, we've heard so much about this tobacco plant, and we've heard so much about this cannabis plant. And, of course, the cannabis plant is completely illegal. Nobody is allowed, if this was cannabis that is in this tin, and, I'm not going to tell you which is in here. One's cannabis, one's tobacco, and I can tell, obviously, because I'm taking care of this, but you don't know. And I want to just see if you can tell which one it is, by the effect that we observe here on the camera after I use this little machine to get it all prepared. Because here in America, if this is tobacco that's in my little tin, what I'm doing right now is just perfectly legal, just relaxing, just hanging out, having a good time, and enjoying a processed plant. So, if this is tobacco, everything here is perfectly legal. And if this is cannabis, I'm breaking a federal law. And it's hard to tell, really, don't you think? I mean, nothing crazy seems to be happening. I don't hear sirens, and I don't hear air raid alerts, or nobody's going crazy here. I haven't, started beating Calico or anything. I'm still running the show okay. Gosh, we got about 7 minutes to go. Everything seems to be happening all right. So this must be tobacco that's in this. Because what I've heard about this cannabis is that, it leads to psychoses. It can lead to schizophrenia. No way I could be running a talk radio show if this were leading to schizophrenia or psychosis right now. So this has to be tobacco. I mean, it has to be tobacco because nothing bad's happening here. We've heard so much about this cannabis that it can lead to harder drugs. And, well, I'm looking around the studio and I don't see any harder drugs. I don't detect any around here. So since there's no harder drugs here, this has to be tobacco that I'm smoking here, because if it were cannabis, some bad things would be happening. I know. They also said that, cannabis would lead to problems with cognition and short-term memory, right? If you were to smoke cannabis, it'd be very hard to remember things, like being able to run a DJ studio, a Google spreadsheet, a Google browser, a live stream, a recording computer, a webcam max, a Skype machine, and a 32 channel or 24 channel board with 4 sub-outs. So since I'm doing all of that, and since there's 2 people out sick today and I'm managing to cover all that, this has to be tobacco. There's no way someone could accomplish this as a cannabis consumer. I just don't see how that would be possible. They'd also said that it would cause problems, cannabis use would cause problems with amotivation. Like, you wouldn't be able to accomplish things. You'd be so slacker and so lazy that you just wouldn't want to get anything done. And yet I'm looking at the blog here, and it seems to me that I wrote, this looks like about 1,500 words today before the show began. I got this big old post on the Washington dispensaries and had to do a couple research things for that. And this one up here on the Starbucks thing, I had to actually look at 3 different websites and research a couple court cases on that today. And also sent a bunch of emails out to all the people I was at NORML conference with. Managed to find a song for today as well, that Jazz Chronic song. And also the CNN thing on the polls. I updated the graph for all those polls. And since Pennsylvania dropped a medical marijuana, they put in a medical marijuana bill, and then Hawaii, the couple of their bills didn't make it through, so I had to adjust the graphic map that we use for that. So I got that done today as well. This was all before the show began today at 1 o'clock. And of course, before that, I was getting the recordings re-recorded. I had to record an ad that will appear between the NORML network, the spots on the NORML network, so you won't hear the NORML conference ad. So I had to re-record a new ad today, and did a little bit of that today as well. So all this got accomplished before noon today. So this can't be cannabis. I mean, it's got to be tobacco. Nobody could get that much stuff done under the influence of cannabis. It's just not possible, because we've heard it time and time again from the drug czar. We've heard it time and time again from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America. It's got to be tobacco, Kaliko here. It's got to be tobacco, because here's the other reason I know. My wife was here earlier today. My wife was in the house. She was here, which means she hasn't left me for an alien yet. Because I read that too. I saw that on an ad once, that if I were, smoking cannabis, that I would become uninteresting and slovenly, and an alien would come out of the sky and take my girlfriend away, or I suppose my wife. It's, the same thing. So this has to be tobacco, because if this were cannabis, obviously, Oh, and Roscoe. Let's not forget Roscoe the dog. My beautiful Jack Russell Terrier, Roscoe, he was just down here earlier. He's such a cute dog, jumped up on my lap and licked my face. So he still loves me. I saw that other commercial where the dog, was disappointed in his master because he was a cannabis smoker. And so that's how I know this has to be tobacco. Because if this were cannabis, Roscoe would have nothing to do with me. He'd have nothing to do with me. So obviously, this must be tobacco. Obviously, it's not tobacco because it went out. But I hope you get the point. And the point is, looking at this little cigarette, looking at the man behind the mic here smoking it, do you see a crime going on? Do you see a crime going on knowing that this is cannabis, or guessing that it's tobacco? Would you see any difference in the person that's using those substances? Well, I'll tell you a few of the differences you will see. You won't see me jonesing like crazy if I can't get a hold of one of these. You won't see me freaking out about the notion that it might be taxed. I actually welcome that. You won't see me suffering from advanced forms of cancer that tend not to show up for people that tend to use cannabis and not tobacco at all. You won't see me overusing acetaminophen. In fact, I can't recall the last time I took a pain reliever. Really, even an aspirin, a Tylenol, an Aleve, any NSAID. I can't even recall the last time I took one of those drugs. And you won't see me getting sick very often. Oddly enough, they always say that marijuana affects the immune system. In fact, but yet here I am, show number 702, rarely taking a day off for being sick, and rarely do I get sick. My immune system seems to be just fine. So it seems strange to me that this is the one. This is the plant America chose to criminalize and demonize, the cannabis plant. While the tobacco plant, anyone above the age of 18 is allowed to use it. And again, it's not an idea of whether or not we approve of the use of cannabis. We certainly don't approve of the use of tobacco. Ask any smoker out there if they think tobacco use is approved of by our government, and they'll tell you it's not. They're out there shivering in the cold, outside, 50 feet away from the entrance. State law is not even allowing them to smoke in bars anymore. And yet, nobody wants to throw them in jail. And that's all I'm asking. All I'm asking is that if I'm lighting up this, you treat it the same as if it were tobacco. You can demonize it. You can say bad things about it. You can say it's unhealthy. You can have public service campaigns against it. Just don't lock me up. And stop locking all of us up for use of a plant objectively safer than tobacco. Thanks, folks, for, just for Kaliko the intern. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us here for Normal Show Live. Everyone will be back tomorrow to lead you into the weekend. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is Normal Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it on one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it,